Today, we look at the epic novel titled The Lord of the Rings, written by Tolkien. He was born on 3rd January 1892. He had a versatile personality. He was a poet, philologist and university professor, best known as the author of the classic high fantasy works The Hobbit, The Lord of the Rings and Silmarillion. He died on 2nd September 1973. He was very close to C.S. Lewis and both were active members of informal literary discussion group known as Inklings. Tolkien was appointed a commander of the Order of the British Empire by Queen Elizabeth II on 28 March of 1972. After his death, his son Christopher took the onus of preserving his father's literary contribution, thus giving access to the world to read his father's works. He published a series of works based on his father's extensive notes and unpublished manuscripts, including Silmarillion. These, together with The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, form a series of tales, poems, fictional histories, invented languages and literary essays about a fantasy world called Arda and Middle-earth within it. The request for a sequel actually motivated Tolkien to pen his most famous work, the epic novel The Lord of the Rings, originally published in 3 volumes between 1954 and 1955. Both The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings are set against the background of Silmarillion, but in a time long after it. Initially, Tolkien started the tale with children as his audience in the style of The Hobbit, but it quickly grew darker and serious in tone in writing and addressed an older audience, drawing on the immense backstory of Beleriand and that Tolkien had constructed in previous years. Tolkien, through his pen, has enriched that fantasy genre that grew up after the success of The Lord of the Rings. The popularity was at its peak in the 1960s, and The Lord of the Rings remained popular as one of the most popular works of fiction of the 20th century. In 2008, The Times ranked him 6th on a list of the 50 greatest British writers since 1945. Forbes ranked him the 5th top earning dead celebrity in 2009. The novel begins with the introduction of the Dark Lord Sauron, who creates a ring to rule the other rings of power and corrupt those who wear them, the leaders of men, elves and dwarves. He is defeated in a battle by an association of elves and men. Isildur cuts one ring from Sauron's finger, claiming it as an heirloom for his line, and Sauron loses his physical form. When Isildur is later trapped and killed by orcs, the ring is lost in the river Anduin at Gladden Fields. Over 2000 years later, the ring is found by one of the river folks called Deagle. His friend Smeagol is instantly influenced by the power of the ring and throttles or strangles Deagle to obtain it. Smeagol is expelled and hides under the misty mountains, where the ring increases his lifespan and transforms him over the course of hundreds of years into an abnormal and corrupted creature called Gollum. He misplaces the ring, his precious, and is recounted in The Hobbit. Bilbo Baggins finds it. Meanwhile, Sauron regains his physical form and takes back his old kingdom of Mordor. Gollum begins an intensified search of the ring, but is captured by Sauron, who comes to know that Baggins in the Shire now has it. Gollum is set loose, and Sauron, who needs the ring to reign in power, deputes his powerful men, the Nazgul, to seize it. Second part of the story is the Fellowship of the Ring. The story begins in the Shire, where the hobbit Frodo Baggins inherits the ring from Bilbo Baggins, his cousin and guardian. Both are unaware of its origin and magical powers, but Gandalf the Grey, a wizard and old friend of Bilbo, is apprehensive about the ring's identity. After he ascertains, he strongly advises Frodo to take it away from the Shire. Frodo leaves his gardener and friend Samwise, or in short Sam, Gamgee, and two cousins Meriadoc Merry, or Brandybuck, and Peregrine Pippin Took. They meet the Nazgul while still in the Shire, but shake off pursuit by cutting through the old forest, where Tom Bombadil, who alone is unaffected by the ring's corrupting influence that accompanies them. After leaving the forest, they stop in the town of Bree, where they meet Strider, who is Aragorn, Isildur's Ezenhale, who becomes his guide and protector. They flee from Bree, but are attacked by Nazgul on the hill of Weathertop, wounding Frodo with a Morgul blade. Aragorn leads the hobbits towards elven refuge of Rivendell, while Frodo yields to the wound. The ring wraiths overtake Frodo at the ford of Bruinen, but flood waters summoned by Elrond, master of Rivendell, rise up and engulf them. Elrond helps Frodo to recover in Rivendell, and his council reveals the history about Sauron and the ring, as well as the news that Sauron has corrupted Gandalf's fellow wizard Saruman. The council decides to destroy the ring by offering it to the flames of Mount Doom in Mordor, where it was forged. Frodo volunteers to take on this daunting task, and a Fellowship of the Ring is formed to aid him. After failing to cross the Misty Mountains, the company passes through a perilous path through the mines of Moria, where they are attacked by the Watcher in the water before the gate. Inside, they discover the fate of Balin and his colony of dwarves. After resisting an attack, they are chased by orcs and a demonic creature called a Balrog. Gandalf confronts the Balrog, and both fall into a deep abyss. The others escape and take shelter in the elven forest of Lothlorien, where they are advised by Galadriel and Celeborn. With boats and gifts from Galadriel, the company travels down the river Anduin to the hill of Amun-Hen. Boromir gives in to the lure of the ring and attempts to take it from Frodo. Frodo escapes and goes on quest all alone, though Sam guesses his plan and comes along. The Fellowship of the Ring is broken. Orcs sent by Saruman and Sauron kill Boromir and abduct Merry and Pippin. The orcs are slain by a company of Rohirrim. Merry and Pippin escape into Fangorn Forest, where they are befriended by Treebeard, the oldest of the tree-like Ents. Aragorn, Gimli, and Legolas discover hobbits to Fangorn and meet Gandalf after his fight with the Balrog. Gandalf promises them that Merry and Pippin are safe. Later, they go on a ride to Edoras, the capital of Rohan, and free Theoden, the king of Rohan, from the spell of Saruman's henchman Grim Wormtongue. Theoden musters strength and rides to the ancient fortress of Helm's Deep, but en route Gandalf leaves to seek help from Treebeard. Meanwhile, the Ents are provoked from their usual peaceful ways by Merry and Pippin, attack Isengard, Saruman's stronghold, and imprison the wizard in the Tower of Orthanc. Gandalf persuades Treebeard to send an army of Hurons to support Theoden. Gandalf then meets Saruman at Orthanc. There, Saruman rejects his offer of redemption. Gandalf strips him of his rank and most of his powers. Frodo and Sam capture Gollum and force him to guide them to Mordor. Torn between his loyalty to Frodo and his desire for the ring, Gollum eventually betrays Frodo by leading him to the great spider Shelob in the tunnels of Cirith Ungol. Frodo is felled by Shelob's sting, but Sam fights her off. Sam takes the ring and leaves Frodo, believing him to be dead. When orcs find Frodo, Sam overhears them and say that Frodo is only unconscious and chases after them. Third part of the story describes the return of the king. Sauron unleashes a fatal attack upon Gondor. The city is captured by hostile forces, and Denethor, deceived by Sauron, disappointed, commits suicide. Rago, left with no choice, takes the paths of the dead to reach Gondor in time. After capturing the ships of the Corsairs, Aragorn leads reinforcements of the Anduin to break the cordon of Minas Tirith. The forces of Gondor and Rohan defeat Sauron's army in the Battle of Pelennor Fields. Meanwhile, Sam rescues Frodo from the Tower of Cirith Ungol, and they set out across Mordor in order to distract Sauron from his true danger. With the destruction of the One Ring, Sauron is permanently shorn of his power, and Aragorn's forces emerge victorious. With the end of the War of the Ring, Aragorn is crowned Elisar, king of Arnor and Gondor, and marries his love Arwen, daughter of Elrond. Saruman flees from Isengard and tries to carve a new kingdom in the Shire. The four hobbits, upon returning home, revolt and overthrow him. Grima turns on Saruman and kills him, and is killed in turn by hobbit archers. The War of the Ring thus comes to its true end on Frodo's very doorstep. Frodo is shattered in body and spirit after having borne the evil weight of One Ring so long. Sam gives his daughter the Red Book of Westmarch, which narrates Bilbo's adventures and the War of the Ring as witnessed by the hobbits. Sam is then said to have crossed west over the sea himself, the last victim of the ring bearers. So that is the interesting end of this epic novel. Aragorn is the rightful king of Gondor and travels anonymously at the beginning of the trilogy. He is a ranger known as Strider. His powerless position reveals the weak state of the kingdoms of men. As the trilogy progresses, Aragorn proves to be a noble leader with a pure heart. He is unaffected by the desire of the ring. He is in love with the elf princess Arwen. He fights for her survival and for the triumphant return of the ring to Mordor. Second character is Arwen, an elf princess and Aragorn's future queen. Like many characters in the trilogy, Arwen must make a sacrifice. She is forced to choose between the immortal life of the elves and a mortal life with Aragorn, whom she loves. Based on a vision Arwen has of the future, we know the couple will eventually have a child. Bilbo, Frodo's uncle and a playful hobbit who possesses the ring at the beginning of the trilogy. Bilbo never realizes that his ring is the one ring of power. Like Gandalf and Frodo, he is invited to depart with the elves at the end of the return of the king. Next character is Boromir, the heir to the steward of Gondor. More than any other member of the Fellowship of the Ring, Boromir is the victim of the desire for the ring. He is killed in the battle, but his bravery allows the other members of the Fellowship to survive. Frodo, important character again, the ring bearer and the protagonist of the trilogy. A young hobbit, Frodo is chosen by the wizard Gandalf to return the ring to Mordor. The ring offers terrible temptation to anyone who comes near it, and Frodo also succumbs to its power. The ring has a great effect on Frodo, changing him from an ordinary hobbit of exceptional qualities into someone extraordinary. In 3 epic films full of battles, he is a reserved, physically small and an ineffective fighter. Galadriel, an elf queen known as the Lady of the Woods and the Lady of the Sylvan Elves, who offers spiritual aid to Frodo when he is deceived by Gollum and trapped in the spider Shelob's webs. Next character is Gandalf, a grandfatherly wizard, the first to understand the dangers that Bilbo's ring poses, and his knowledge sets the whole trilogy in motion. Gandalf exhibits remarkable wisdom and insight into hobbits and men alike, and he seems to see potential and ability where others do not. Gandalf is affable, slow and deliberate, but he is also a skilled fighter. His battles with Saruman and in the mines of Moria are heroic. At the end of the trilogy, he leaves with Bilbo, Frodo and the elves for immortal life. Gollum, a wretched swamp creature who covets the ring, who was a hobbit earlier named Smeagol. His transformation into the disgusting raw fish eating Gollum serves as a cautionary tale about the evil effects of the ring. As is Sauron's Gollum's identity is tied up with the ring, whereas Sauron is pure evil. However, Gollum is pure weakness. He is always the ring's victim. Isildur, the farmer king of Gondor. Isildur once defeated the forces of Sauron and came to possess the ring of power. On Mount Doom, this fatal possession breathes new life into Sauron, allowing him to wage war on Middle-earth a second time. Sam, Frodo's best friend and constant companion. If Frodo's burden is to carry the ring, Sam's is to carry Frodo, which he literally does as the two finally struggle up Mount Doom. His life represents the mortal life lived to the fullest. Immortality holds no charm for him, and he wants nothing more than to thrive in the present. Saruman, a wizard who joins forces with Sauron, a former friend of Gandalf, Saruman has been tempted by evil and is allied with Sauron. At his mighty tower, Orthanc, he creates countless Uruk-hai, monsters that terrorize Middle-earth. Theoden, the king of Rohan. Initially, Theoden is an elderly, decrepit and an insane king, nearly out of his mind, doing the behest of his evil advisor. Wormtongue, his insanity and decrepitude, however, are both symptoms of his being under the spell of Saruman. Theoden dies in battle but proves himself to be a worthy king. Many interesting themes also spice up this novel. At the beginning of The Lord of the Rings, Middle-earth is weak and disunited. with little trust existing among the various races, as the true leaders are not in their rightful positions. In The Return of the King, Theoden of Rohan proves himself to be a good, noble leader when he heeds Gondor's cry for help, but he was not always so effective. Until the conclusion of trilogy, Gondor is without a king. The throne is instead occupied by the steward Denethor, a weak-willed man who seems to be losing his mind. Throughout the trilogy, the tension between true leader and acting leader means the difference between life and death, success and defeat, and unity and dissent among the people of Middle-earth. Now let us look at the limits of fellowship. Though the fellowship is integral to the success of Frodo's mission, it cannot make the entire journey with Frodo or help him at the journey's end. The fellowship serves as a kind of backup for Frodo, keeping enemies at bay and Middle-earth as calm as possible so he can fulfill his mission. The nature of the ring itself puts its own limits on fellowship. The ring is a heavy burden for whoever carries it, and it forces its bearer into tremendous isolation. At the end of the fellowship of the ring, Galadriel tells Frodo that bearing the ring is a solitary task, prompting him to leave the others. Even after the ring is destroyed, Frodo remains isolated. He is unable to readjust to life in the Shire, and his experience as a ring bearer has permanently isolated him from his peers. Mordor. Frodo and Sam's destination is Mordor, specifically the volcanic Mount Doom, in which they intend to destroy the Ring of Power. The journey of Mordor is fraught with setbacks, not only because Mordor is located in difficult terrain and guarded by dangerous monsters, but also because this journey represents a spiritual quest that Frodo as well as Sam and other characters must undertake. This journey takes Frodo to a private Mordor, the dark core of his soul, where even his pure heart is no match for the temptations of the ring. Though he returns to the Shire, the Mordor he is seen within himself precludes his journey, coming to a completely peaceful end. Next, the temptation of the ring. This is the motivating force behind every action in The Lord of the Rings, whether characters are fighting for the temptation, nurturing it, denying it, or preventing someone else from giving into it. Characters of every race pursue the ring. The ring wraiths and Sauron seek it constantly. Gollum attacks Frodo several times to try to take it from him. The sons of Denethor, Faramir and Boromir, both try to take it from Frodo. Frodo gives up the ring only because Gollum appears and fights with him for it, a fight that leads to its destruction. The ring that has possessed so many and that has served as a kind of connective tissue among all the races of Middle-earth is ultimately destroyed by its own power. Now let's look at different symbols. Water is an important symbol. Throughout the Lord of the Rings, water serves as a life-saving force for the good beings of Middle-earth. Gandalf and Aragorn are saved from death after long falls when they land in bodies of water. Similarly, Saruman's tower loses its power when its plain is flooded. Water also suggests the afterlife. The elves depart Middle-earth on a boat and sail out to a great body of water. The ring is the center of the trilogy, and it gains multiple changeable meanings as Frodo's journey proceeds. The ring is created by evil Sauron, a mark of evil power. Those who encounter the ring are overcome with longing for power over others, and the ring could give more power to Sauron. The fact that weakness affects every race of Middle-earth shows the extent of ring's power. As the trilogy proceeds, new symbols emerge to counteract the temptation of the ring. The sword, Anduril, suggests good and unity rather than evil and disunity. Arwen serves as a kind of symbol herself, the very opposite of Sauron, the anti-ring, the symbol of hope and good. Mount Doom is both the birthplace of the ring and the place where it is destroyed. This is Frodo's ultimate destination, and it also presents him with his greatest challenge. When Frodo brings the ring to Mount Doom, he too intends to destroy it, but like Isildur, he decides at the last minute to keep it with him. Mount Doom also marks the furthest Frodo gets from the security and familiarity of the Shire. He is as out of place at Mount Doom as the ring was in the Shire, and this is the place where Frodo comes closest to actually giving himself over to evil. To conclude, this great epic has a message to its readers that good always triumphs over evil. Thank you.